Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Pajajanahandana Yashodanandana Pajajanahandana Jamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Sundarbihari Jaya Radha Madhava Sundarbihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Yashodandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamunatira Bhati Yamunatira Pranashavari Jaya Radha Madhava Sundar Bihar Jaya Radha Madhava Sundar Bihar Jaya Vijana Bhagava Girivaradhar Jaya Vijana Bhagava Girivaradhar Yashodandana Gajana Rasana Yashodandana Bhajana Yamunatira Bhavana Hasi Yamunatira Manachari Sridhaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Rama Kunjabihari Jaya Srijana Labha Girivaradhas Jaya Srijana Labha Girivaradhas Yashodandana Bhajana Smahyana Yashodandana Bhajana Yamunatira Vanatahar Yamunatira Vanatahar Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Braham Vijakachaya Shodashata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Jaya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Pimanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 6, titled Prahlad Instructs His Demoniac Schoolmates, text number 5. Tato yete ta kushala kshemaya bhavamashrita shariram parusham yavan navipadyeta pushkalam tato yate ta kushala kshemaya bhavam ashrita shariram parusham yavan Navipadyeta pushkalam tato yateta kushala shemaya bhavamashrita shariram parusham yavan navipadyeta pushkalam tata. Therefore, yateta should endeavor, kushala an intelligent man interested in the ultimate goal of life. Shemaya, for the benefit of life, or for liberation from material bondage. Bhavamashrita, who is in material existence. Shariram, the body. Paurusham, human. Yavat, as long as. Na, not. Vipadyeta, fails. Pushkalam, stout and strong. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Therefore, while in material existence, Bhavamashrita, a person fully competent to distinguish right from wrong, must endeavor to achieve the highest goal of life, as long as the body is stout and strong and is not embarrassed by dwindling. Report. As stated by Prahlad Maharaj at the beginning of this chapter, Komara Acharet Pragya. The word pragya refers to one who is experienced and who can distinguish right from wrong. Such a person should not waste his energy and valuable human lifetime simply working like a cat or dog to develop his economic condition. For one word in this verse, there are two readings, Bhavam Ashrita and Ayam Ashrita. But accepting the meaning of either of them will bring one to the same conclusion. Ayam Ashrita indicates that the materialistic way of life is always fearful because at every step there is danger. Materialistic life is full of anxieties and fear, Bayam. Similarly, accepting the reading Bhavam, Ashrita, the word Bhavam refers to unnecessary trouble and problems. For want of Krishna consciousness, one is put into Bhavam, being perpetually embarrassed by birth, death, old age, and disease. Thus, one is surely full of anxiety. Human society should be divided into a social system of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. But everyone can engage in devotional service. If one wants to live without devotional service, his status as a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra certainly has no meaning. It is said, Stanad Brashta Patat Patantyada. Whether one is in a higher or lower division, one certainly falls down for want of Krishna consciousness. A sane man, therefore, is always fearful of falling from his position. This is a regulative principle. One should not fall from his exalted position. The highest goal of life can be achieved as long as one's body is stout and strong. One should therefore live in such a way that we keep ourselves always healthy and strong in mind and intelligence, so that we can distinguish the goal of life from a life full of problems. A thoughtful man must act in this way, learning to distinguish right from wrong, and thus attain the goal of life. Om Gina Dharmandasya Ginanjana Shlakaya Chakshumitamina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Prahlad Maharaj here is continuing his instructions to his schoolmates, repeating what he heard from Narada Muni while he was still in the womb of his mother. And he is suggesting, or he is instructing his schoolmates to distinguish right from wrong, that is, proper action from improper action, and to use this human form of life to perform the correct actions, to do the right thing rather than do the wrong thing. And in particular, to uh, act in this way while one has the strength to do so. It is a fact of material existence, of material bodies, that for a time they are strong, generally speaking, that they're able to perform so many different activities. But eventually they deteriorate by the process of old age. And so, as Prahlad Maharaj will say in the later verses, he will give an accounting, actually, of the lifetime of the living entity, where the first part of life is basically useless because one is a child and doesn't have the developed intelligence. The last part of life is basically useless because one is so weakened by old age. Half of the rest of the life is useless because one is sleeping. And he gives these examples with the idea that one should use the useful part of life to solve the problems of life. Because living in this material world, we always have problems. And we come up with all of these different ones. Everybody thinks that there is some problem uh, that one wishes to solve. The students might have a problem of a incompetent teacher. Teachers might have problems of lazy students. The According to the Israelis, the problem is the Palestinians, and according to the Palestinians, the problem is the Israelis. According to uh, one group of people, another group of people is the problem. So many ways we come up with different problems that we try to solve. But factually, we cannot solve these problems. We can only move them around as the nature of material existence is always problems. No matter what one tries to do, there will always be various problems according to our upadis, according to our identifications. I take on some identification, and then I have the problems that are incumbent or that are intrinsic to that identification. I do not have a fear from spiders or that a spider will eat me, right? It is more that the spider should have a fear that some human will come along and crush it. But if I take on the identification, the upadi of a fly, then I become very fearful of spiders. But when my term of karma for that body is over, I accept a different set of problems. I might somehow or other be able to solve the spider problem if I'm in a fly body, to solve the wolf problem if I'm in a deer body, uh, solve the student problem if I'm in a professor's body, uh, and solve this problem or that problem according to my uh, identification at the time. But that does not permanently solve my problems because I'm at the very highest level that I will just give up that form of life anyway and accept another body with that problem, those problems. And even more prosaically, one cannot actually solve these problems. They are intrinsic to the form of life that we accept. So we have to ask, what is our real problem in life? What is actually the issue with our existence? And the answer is that really our real problems uh, are the problems of material existence. One could analyze this either split into four or split into three. Split into four is, of course, birth, death, old age, and disease. Or you could split them into three, uh, which is adibodhika, that is trouble from other living entities. Adi Devika, that is trouble from uh, natural causes, literally from the demigods, uh, or Adhyatmika, from our own body and mind. Whichever way one decides to analyze them, either the division into birth, death, disease, and old age, or the division into Adibodhika, Adidevika, and Adhyatmika, the issue is that uh, the trouble is there anytime we are in material existence. That is why there are these two feelings for those who are in material existence that Prabhupada discusses in the purport. Bhayam ashrita and bhavam ashrita. Bhayam, of course, means fear or anxiety. One is always in a fearful condition in human life or in all material life because at every step there is danger. This anxiety can be large or small, can be existential or just mundane, between, uh, how am I going to make sure that my boss likes me to what am I doing with my life? And there's also bhava ashrita. That means unnecessary trouble and problems. That in endeavoring in material life, we accept the fear and anxiety and the trouble and problems. It is impossible to get rid of these as long as one is endeavoring materially, because it is not that these things just randomly come. Of course, we have the results of our past karma that give us uh, either pleasant or unpleasant situations, depending on the activities on our past life, by our in our past lives. But these feelings, this anxiety, this fear, bhayam, or this trouble and problems, bhavam, comes because we are chasing material enjoyment. It is not that the material enjoyments and material suffering are separated. They are one and the same thing, just two aspects of the same reality. Because by endeavoring for this enjoyment, we have to take on these anxieties and troubles. There are so many examples of this. One might wish to have a very attractive body, just as a very mundane example. But if one wishes to, have a very muscly and attractive body, then one has to endeavor, in the gym or other exercise routines by carefully being mm, vigilant of what one eats. So one has to accept these things. Now, that's a very mundane example, a very, I guess, small time example, but there are so many uh, other examples as well. Practically, or not just practically, actually, every activity of sense gratification is an example. For example, a man might decide that he wants to enjoy sex life. So therefore, he looks for a woman. But to maintain the woman, he has to accept some sort of employment, and the needs expand more and more. So that one needs a griha, a house. These days, of course, one needs a car generally. All forms of insurance, and then educating the children, and because one might just want the sex life, but afterwards, children result. And then one must maintain them as well, for great anxiety and trouble. And there's so many other ways that these things cause anxiety. But the impetus was material enjoyment, that the man wanted to enjoy sex life. But along with that comes so much unnecessary trouble and problems, as well as anxiety. You know, the trouble and problems are uh, there because even for this one material desire, one has to satisfy so many people. Saying that one has to have some form of employment generally to maintain one's partner, which means one also has to satisfy one's employer, which can be very troublesome. And then one is also always in fear or anxiety. How am I going to maintain uh, my dependence? But these days, with the economic situation the way that it is not always easy to maintain oneself, what to speak of others. Even a materially rich man is in anxiety of losing his money. The economic and financial situation is so dire now that even a very wealthy person can become a pauper practically overnight. So at every step, and in every way, there is always these two feelings, bhayam and bhavam, fear and distress. So Prahlad Maharaj is recommending that we that we try to solve the actual problems of life: birth, death, disease, and old age, or uh, adibodhika, adidevika, adiatmika. Because if one does not solve these problems, one will again and again be put into distress. And the way to solve these problems is, of course, devotional service. Uh, Prabhupada in the purport mentions, of course, the Varna system: Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Of course, at many points throughout his purports, he mentions the Naiva Varnashram system. That is the system of divisions in society that are focused on pleasing uh, Krishna or Vishnu. There's always division in society. There is always an intellectual class, the Brahmanas, or Brahmana, for fulfilling the Brahmana role. There are always administrators. There are always the uh, mercantile people, and there are always the employees. So the uh, Varnashram system. These divisions are always existent in human society, but they can either be asurika, that is demoniac, or they can be daiva, divine, based on whether they are mm, pointed or directed towards spiritual advancement or simply material advancement. The society that is existent now in most parts of the world is surely, as one analyzes it, asurika, demoniac. There are so many examples of this. I'm sure everybody can think of some. How the modern society is simply engaged in demoniac work to destroy the world, to borrow Prabhupada's phrase. This is because it is only focused on economic development. The mantra, the motto of today uh, is more or less that profit is God, that everything is done in order to gain financial profit, and that whatever other effects there are don't matter as much or even at all. Economists use the term externalities to indicate these various things which they say don't matter. So they ignore, uh, for example, a river becoming polluted uh, by industrial activity. So it is actually very explicit in these financial and economic models that the material goods are all that matter. Example that comes to mind is this contemporary uh, AI boom. Some insane parts of the computing power of the um, world at the moment is being put to um, AI. But there are so many externalities. Of course, the one of the big ones that people talk about is the water usage uh, that is drawing from municipal and other water sources. But there are so many examples as well, a growing number of people being driven to homicide or suicide by chatting with ChatGPT. I recently heard of a case where ChatGPT convinced somebody to kill uh, his mother and I think one other person because he was having some paranoid fantasies, and ChatGPT was encouraging him in this regard. So, just getting back to the main point, that a society where there's only materialistic endeavor is considered asurika, even if it follows to some extent, or one extent or another, the Von Ashram system. On the other hand, uh, or before I get there, that we should understand, according to what Prabhupada is saying in this purport, that all of these social positions are useless if they are within this Asurika system, if they are not within the Daiva system, that is the system of Krishna consciousness. We can see many examples of this as well. For example, the people are those fulfilling the Brahmana role, the intellectual leaders of society, are either useless or less than useless for the most part. You might find one or two that are doing okay, but for the most part, it's just nonsense endeavor. So many intelligent people have been engaged in spending their entire lives doing things that don't actually matter. What comes to mind is when I was in graduate school, I was studying Quist 3 GPDs of the proton using lattice QCD. For those of you who don't know what that means, uh, we were basically just trying to understand the internal structure of the proton a bit more precisely uh, using some certain computational methods. And there are so many uh, other people doing similar things. I went to the Lattice conference in Germany one summer, and it was a few hundred people doing this sort of work. Not exactly the same thing, of course, but similar things. It has no actual technological or economic or even existential uh, benefit. It's just something that we engage our intelligent people in, or the people who have potential for intelligence, let's say. Uh, and those who, well, this is not the actual mm, purpose or the actual activities of a Brahmana, because Brahmanas are meant to guide society, where not just spend their time in uselessly figuring things out about material theories. And even today, those who attempt to guide society do so based on nonsense theories that are simply mental speculation. Because one can go through similar examples with the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras as well. But the main point is that one engages in these sorts of nonsense material activities if one is wanting for Krishna consciousness. Automatically, by taking shelter of the process of Krishna consciousness, we give up these nonsense activities. As it's said, all good qualities automatically develop in the devotee. So, by advancement in Krishna consciousness, one can give up the nonsense version of the various occupational duties that are there, but also give up this bhayam and bhava, this anxiety and fear, or this trouble and problems, simply by taking advantage of Krishna consciousness. There's no other extraneous or other method that is necessary to gain or to fulfill this purpose. And there's actually no other method that is possible to fulfill this purpose. The only thing that can uh, eliminate our troubles and anxieties is Krishna consciousness. So we should take up this system, this sadhana, this process of sadhana bhakti, and be fearful of falling down. we should always be fearful of Maya. It is not actually a small thing to have some material activity. We can sometimes think, I'll do the Krishna stuff most of the time, and then I'll have a little bit for myself. But that is not the way that Maya works. Uh, if one engages in material activity, that material activity expands. One is either Krishna conscious or one is in Maya. One can't be both. Uh, it's not, just like that you get, I really like Krishna consciousness, but I just want a little Maya on the side. And one has to make a decision uh, to what one wants to get out of life. Will one continue in the cycle of Bhaya Bhavam, of troubles and anxieties, or will one escape the cycle to uh, pure Krishna consciousness? And we should always be thinking. We should always be thinking like this, of becoming very afraid of Maya. Prabhupada uh, once said is that the difference between him and his followers is that he was afraid of Maya and his followers were not. So we should take on this mood of the spiritual master, of always being afraid of the material energy and endeavor, as Prabhupada mentions in the purport, to always keep ourselves uh, healthy and strong in mind and intelligence, so that we can distinguish the goal of life from a life full of problems. And the way that we keep ourselves strong in mind and intelligence uh, is by taking up the process of Krishna consciousness, practicing it very seriously, in particular, chanting Hare Krishna, our prescribed number of rounds, uh, as much without offenses as possible, following the rules and regulations of devotional life, and of course, intensely studying Srila Prabhupada's books. The books have all of the answers to life's problems, so we don't need anything else in order to make our lives a success and finally get free from the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. So I will stop here for comments and questions. We have about 17 minutes left. And I will also ask for the blessings of the assembled Vaishnavas. Damodar Kata and I are leaving for our pilgrimage to Mayapur today. So you could please give your blessings that we make it there successfully and are able to take advantage of the holy dawn. Then we will be sure of success. All right. So any comments or questions, complaints?
Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Oh,
I want to thank you for a nice class,
thank you.
and I wish you the best on your pilgrimage. Um,
Thank you.
I'm sure it will go nicely, but in any case, I want to offer my well wishes. And um, yeah, this class it's a nice follow up to yesterday's class. We were discussing um, the issue of sense gratification, and sometimes devotees have an idea that I should allow myself a little bit of sense gratification. Srila Prabhupada rejected this idea, but sometimes even um, uh, leaders will sometimes
Mm,
condone something like that. Um, for a particular purpose.
Mhm.
Our philosophy is that we don't want to be engaged in sense gratification at all. Um, that means bodily platform. It um, means suffering. That's one thing that is important to understand, that sometimes we forget that um, enjoyment and suffering are two sides of the same coin. And
Mhm.
that if you're on the platform of enjoyment, you are also on the platform of suffering. But more than that, if you engage, if you engage in sense gratification, you are doomed to suffer in some kind of a way. It's
Mhm.
inescapable. It's it's um, it's just a hard and fast rule of the way that the material nature works. Um, to whatever extent you take, you have to give back. Nothing is free, and there is a price to be had for sense gratification. Everyone has a certain stock of highest credits,
Mhm.
and by the process of sense gratification, you are gradually diminishing that stock. From that stock comes all different kinds of benefits. Um, you are uh, blessed with, for example, a certain amount of intelligence. Um, you will have certain facilities available in your life. You will have access to various comforts and amenities based upon your accrual of pious credits, but sense gratification will diminish that. And there are other direct reactions that in some sort of a way will invariably result in suffering. So um, it is the effect of illusion that that one thinks somehow or other that indulgence in sense gratification it, can be done in a regulated way, and it will be innocuous, it will be innocent, it will not create any great problem. Um, but this is absolutely an illusion. The reality is that sense gratification always means suffering. The two go hand in hand, and they are inseparable, absolutely inseparable. If you enjoy, you must suffer.
Mhm.
It's a hard and fast rule. Um, it is, however, possible to pay in advance, and that's how we have the heavenly planets. That one can perform austerities. Um, one can um, accept voluntary suffering in advance, and in that way offset one's karmic balance such that you have a surplus and then enjoy it afterwards.
Mhm.
So there's different payment plans. You can pay as you go. You can pay on credit. You can pay in advance. But one way or another, you have to pay. That's just the law of material nature. So enjoyment and suffering go hand in hand. They are inseparable. Um, and somewhere Narada Muni talks about the fact that um, that to the extent that one enjoys, one must suffer, but
Mhm.
that really the nature of the material world is that while it appears that a balance is maintained between enjoyment and suffering, the reality is that actually the suffering side of the balance is actually greater. It's always
Mhm.
greater. But um, anyway, this tendency to forget that enjoyment and suffering are connected inseparably is one of the very great illusions of Maya, that
Hmm.
we think that somehow or other enjoyment is separate, that you can segregate. I can try to minimize my suffering and I can try to maximize my enjoyment, but you it's not really possible. You can't do that. They go together all the time. They go hand in hand. You can't separate them.
Hmm.
So, and you described this in various ways, which I appreciate. It's important for devotees to remember this. Um, but as I was alluding to the fact that sometimes even advanced devotees will
Hmm.
sometimes engage disciples or followers in activity that appears to be sense gratification. They will do that, however, for a particular purpose, for the advancement of Krishna consciousness. I can think of
Hmm.
lots of examples, um, sometimes for the purpose of building community or increasing a disciple's attachment for their spiritual master or their God siblings, bringing devotees together and reinforcing um, uh, their spirit of community. Um, for that purpose, sometimes um, even advanced devotees sometimes engage followers in um, activities that might be regarded as frivolous or just useless sense gratification. So um, um, perhaps a game of basketball or soccer or sled riding or whatever it might be, bicycle rides. Um,
Hmm.
these things are sometimes done, but for a higher purpose. Um, and there is a particular benefit to that. Um, and there may also be suffering that will come unavoidably for whatever sense gratification has been accepted, um, but sometimes um, the benefits outweigh uh, the the problems. Um, so an advanced devotee may sometimes use the material nature in a medicinal sort of way,
Hmm.
a therapeutic sort of way, somehow to cultivate Krishna consciousness or conditions favorable to Krishna consciousness, even at the cost of, a little bit of implication in material existence,
Hmm.
uh, with all of the problems that it entails. Um, Using a thorn to extract a thorn, uh,
Hmm.
one could say. Anyway, a few of my thoughts. Thank you for a nice class. You addressed a whole bunch of important points there nicely. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your comments, Prabhu. Yeah, the main, yeah, the one thing that we need to understand is, yeah, as you were saying, that we always pay the price. I actually have, I wrote on a paper and taped to the wall of my room the question, what suffering are you willing to undergo for this enjoyment? So that if I ever am thinking of any sort of sense gratification, I can look at it and then think, like, am I willing to suffer for this? We also have a question in the chat from Madhupan Leela Mataji. How do we distinguish between sense gratification, karma yoga, and recreation? So I'll start with talking about karma yoga, which is offering the results to Krishna. So when we're doing karma yoga, we are still doing service, but the way I've heard it explained is that we are attached to a certain way of doing service. So if one is on, the pure bhakti yoga platform, then whatever service is needed, one just does, no matter what it is. If one needs to go dig a ditch, then one is ecstatically digging a ditch. If one is giving class, one is ecstatically giving a class. If one wants to distribute books, or uh, milk cows or whatever. With karma yoga, we are offering the results to Krishna, but we like doing a certain service, so we'll only do that service or primarily uh, do that service. So it's not necessarily on the full platform of bhakti yoga, uh, because we are still thinking about what we like to do. But it's not totally material activity either, because it is a yoga. It is a connection with Krishna. Uh, as opposed to sense gratification, where we uh, want to keep the results for ourselves. We want to keep the results. We're thinking of our own enjoyment. Uh, that I my senses want these things, so I'm going to contact the sense objects in order to gratify them, in order to make myself feel a certain way. And recreation, uh, of course, for a devotee, our recreation is devotional service. Last time our Guru Dev was here, uh, somebody asked a question, uh, similar to this. Like what about recreation and devotional service? We have so many different services. What about recreation or fun? And Gurudev responded that actually all of our activities are recreation, all of our activities are fun, uh, because we're doing what actually comes naturally to us, devotional service. We're actually in the pure state, or not even fully pure necessarily. Uh, but as we advance in Krishna consciousness, we'll actually tend to enjoy our devotional services. Of course, the uh, exact activity that we are doing for them can change. It's not necessarily that, if I'm physically exhausted or something, my recreation will be cooking Raj Boga or something like that. Uh, but it could be chanting or reading, uh, discussing Krishna Katha. But actually, for devotees, our entire life is recreation, because we are actually enjoying. You know, Everybody wants enjoyment and is searching after it, but actually, only the devotees are uh, finding enjoyment because we have devotional service. Uh, so, yeah, if you want to recreate, uh, then uh, find some devotional service one way or another. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Padasevanam, Archanam Vananam Dasyam Sankhya Matva Nivedanam. Very good form of devotional service is the morning program. So one can come to that either in the temple, or if that doesn't work logistically, one can have it a bit later in one's own home, if one is in that status of life. So yes, our entire life is recreation. Karma yoga is acting in a way that we like, for doing it for Krishna. And then sense gratification is acting for ourselves, acting for what we like to do, um, you know, what what we think would make us happy. So hopefully that answers the question. We are at 8 o'clock. So unless anybody has some last minute objections or exclamations or something, we will end here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Radha ki jai.
Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radha 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 Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radha Jaya Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shri Radha Jaya Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shri Radha Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shri Radha Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shri Radha Jaya Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shri Radha Jaya Lalita Vishaka Lalita Vishaka Shri Radha Jaya Nita Gora Sundar Nita Gora Sundar Gora Jaya Nita Gora Sundar Nita Gora Sundar Gora Jaya Nita Gora Sundar Nita Sundar Gora Jaya Nita Gora Sundar Nita Sundar Gora Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya,
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevalakti Sarvana Badmaya Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevalakti Sarvana Krishna Prasthi Bhoja Krishna Prasthi Bhoja Yoga Anakori Romani Ata Anakori Charan Sati Jati Rama Jati Charan
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste, Namaste, Bhakti, for Hare, Nirvita, Siddhava, Namaste, Saraswati, Gaurava, Siddhava, Nirvita, Nirvana, Jayati Na Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasai Gaura Bhakta Krishna Jai Shri Krishna Prabhu Nityananda
Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Jaya Vishnupada Braham Sagar Jaya Finishana, Srimad, Srimad, Jaya. This one over China, Jaya Vishnupada Braham Sagar Jaya, Jaya Jaya Srimad, Jaya Vishnupada, Sex, Come try. Prem Sake Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Unity Nanda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Dasani Lova, Nikita. Shri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakam Radha Nikita Govardhan Ki. Shri Vrindavan Ki Jai, Mai Pardhan Ki Jai, Gandamaya Ki Jai, Yamunamaya Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Ananta Krishna Vrinda Ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Swami Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai, Monday. All verses in the devotees. All verses in the devotees. All verses to be some devotees, all the tree grew and tree go round up. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotion to service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, we can cross the material substance, obtain mercy. My only wish without my foot is pure by the words of emanating in his lotus path. The attachment to his lotus feet is the fetter that fills all his rags. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him I started from pain and illness. I am the Vedic scriptures to his command. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, friend of the poor, the warrior master of the devotees. O Master, pleasing your soul, give us the thing we know. Your fame's in all green words. His Divine Grace, Nisi Bhakta Maharaj Prabhupada Ki